What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jordan and today we're going to be finishing up the stainless steel exhaust on the DATSUN 280Z. Last time we fabricated the whole thing, we tacked it up, and now we're going to finish up the exhaust, weld it all the way around, and don't worry, I'm not going to tease you, you're going to get to hear it at the end of the video. So stick around because it's going to be good. And so there are just three main pieces of this project left to be finished. We need to tack weld hangers on the exhaust so it can be permanently installed in the car. Then after that, we have to polish the whole thing so it's super finished and ready for welding. And then finally, we need to weld it. So three last steps, but there's lots of work to do. So let's get into it. And so I have two varieties of hangers here, and if you watch the first episode, I bought these first, and they're really nice, but I think they're gonna have a little bit too much play for how tight the fitment is on the project so far. So since then, I went to Summit Racing and I got these, which I think are definitely a better solution for this, and the reason why is because they can contour to the tube, so that means they'll fit up really nice, and you can kind of rotate them and find a place to mount them. But also, they have almost no play at all. So with this little bushing here that gets installed in there, this is how it gets installed in the car. So almost no play at all, and I think that stiff mounting solution is gonna be what we need. So I have two of these for the tubes, and then I bought one of these just in case I thought that maybe we'd need a little bit more security. So we'll see if we use all three, but I think for sure we're gonna be using these two. So I'm gonna go ahead and get them fitted on the car and tacked on, and then we'll continue. I mocked up the two on the bottom of the car, which I think turned out really nice, and then the stock location, the stock hanger, is right there, and it's gonna work out perfectly for this longer one. And we'll just connect it right there. All right, so I got all the hangers tentatively placed. We got this one, which is probably off by a little bit, but that's fine. Then these two were definitely challenging to like hold in place and weld, but got them on nice and sturdy. So let's go throw it on the car, double check everything fits, and then keep going. Yeah, so this hanger setup is definitely gonna be the best solution. This is gonna be mega sturdy right here in the diff cross member. This one is going to go to the dog bone panel, which I believe is what it's called. It's just this like straight thing here. Going to be really sturdy. Then also the straight one there is going to be really good as well. The only downside is that right now this pipe is supported by two of the mounts, and then this one is only supported by this one here. So the end of the tip over there is a little bit wobbly on this tube. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take a piece of metal and join these together. That way it's all kind of like one solid unit, and that way all of the mounts can work together, but it's looking really solid. The system is off the car and looking so good, and I'm here to admire it, but I want to tell you guys the plan coming up. So obviously we have to polish it and then weld it, but before we polish it, I'm going to do something off camera because I'm not going to bore you with it. But after you get it all fit up like this, you really want to go back and do anywhere from 4 to 6 tack welds at each joint within the system. The reason why you do that is because as you weld it, it's going to heat up and move around, and if we didn't do that, you'd weld it up, put it back in the car, and chances are it might not fit the same way. So the next thing you're going to see is me starting to polish, but just to let you know that I'm going to do a bunch more tack welds just to make sure everything stays in place. So let's get to polishing. And just like that, we are back and ready for polishing. So instead of boring you guys with 5 minutes of polishing videos, I want to go over the equipment that I'm going to use because I figure that's the most helpful. So I got this Central Machinery 6-inch buffer from Harbor Freight, and this is a really great unit. It's got tons of power. In fact, it almost has too much power, and I've had a lot of other polishers and they all kind of sucked. So this one is definitely the one to get. And a little pro tip is that you can stack multiple buffing wheels on each side to get a little more surface area so you can work faster. And I'm hoping that will make this project a little bit quicker than my last project. As far as polish and compound goes, I like the Harbor Freight Blue. I've tried all the colors, and for some reason this one seems to be my favorite with stainless, and it's really great. And when you turn on the buffer, it's really smooth and quiet. And when you apply the compound, it's really pretty simple. All you're gonna do is turn it on and then just take out the stick out of this thing and just go burp, burp, burp. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You don't wanna overdo it in the polish, otherwise it's gonna be less effective than you'd want. But aside from that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I have a few hours of polishing ahead of me. I'm gonna show you a few beauty clips, but nothing too serious, not gonna waste too much of your time. So let's get to it. So one piece down, and I just wanted to highlight real quick safety equipment, mainly because being in the garage is kind of like a dangerous thing. You know, you're like using tools and chemicals and all that stuff, and with polishing there's plenty of fibers going around, and lung health is super important. So wear your mask, wear your eyepieces, your gloves. But I do want to show you the piece that I just finished because it looks pretty good. And there's the first piece that is finished. Polishing can be kind of addicting because you never really know when to finish, but in comparison to the other pipes, it looks a whole lot shinier. So I definitely like that, and time to move on to some of the other pieces. All right, guys, a little status update here. We have the polished straight, we have the polished down pipe, the V-bands have been polished, this one has been polished, and then this one is the last one that I have to do, which is a big one, and this is quite the project, I'll tell you that. And I just want to give you a little comparison of what it looks like polished versus matte finish. So if you're doing your project and you decide you want to have matte finish, it definitely still looks good, and it's just personal preference. So just wanted to give you that little side by side. And there we go. With the power of YouTube, the entire exhaust is polished to as much patience as I have. I think the best polished one is definitely the first one, which is, yeah, the collector. It looks like a piece of jewelry for sure. But yeah, it's looking good. The tips are really shiny, which I'm happy about. I decided to keep the resonators kind of a matte finish, which I think is kind of a nice contrast and will look good on the side of the car. But yeah, this whole system has been wiped down with acetone, and it is perfectly clean and ready for welding. But it's 2:30 in the morning, so I am gonna go to sleep, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so it is the next day and I have everything prepped for welding, but I want to go over the setup with you guys because setup is the biggest part of welding stainless. There's a lot of things we need to cover and a lot of things you need to do before you can just start gluing it together. So first I'm going to talk about our purge plugs and argon. So here I have 2 purge plugs, and I also have one over here, which is to ensure that basically I'm using my argon to fill the piece here all the way through. And so I'll have one tube that doesn't have an inlet and it just exhausts out, and there's another purge plug in here that will exhaust out. And so the real question is, for people that don't know, is why do we use argon? And so I have a huge tank of argon here, which I'm probably going to run out before this project is over. But basically you need to fill the entire piece with argon, because when you superheat stainless steel and you're welding it, it can react to oxygen and it will start oxidizing, basically like the equivalent of rusting for stainless. So you pump it with argon, and that way when you're heating it up, the inside of the weld isn't getting destroyed. Because if you don't do this, it's prone to cracking, it's not gonna last. And also the tip of the welder shoots out gas the entire time I'm welding, and actually it will continue to shoot out gas 15 seconds after I'm done welding. And so the key here is basically while the stainless steel is superheated, you need to cover it with argon and do the backside with argon to make sure you have a solid weld. And so basically, when you see welds that are like gold, purple, and blue, that's essentially a temperature range between 350 and 650 degrees, and different colors means that it was exposed to oxygen at different temperatures. So basically, if it's gold, that's the best, and the worst is gray. It's really not that huge of an issue if it gets a little bit gray, but you know, people like it to look nice and be all gold and colorful and stuff like that. So let's talk about filler rod. So I have 2 filler rods that I'm going to use for this project. I have 0.045, which is a really skinny rod, and that's going to be good for these really tiny butt joints and the things that fit up really, really nicely. And then I also have 1/16 rod, which is about 3 times the thickness, and that's going to be used for the V-Bands. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the V-Bands actually have quite a bit of space in some of the areas, and I'm actually kind of surprised about that. So talking about V-Bands, you might be wondering, why do I have a V-Band attached and why is this huge tube going through here? Well, the reason why is because when you heat it and you weld it, the V-Band can warp and it'll end up not fitting well. So while you're welding it, you need to put the V-Band on, that way it's clamped and it's not going to warp. And if they do warp, they'll warp together. So then they're a perfect match and it's no big deal. But guys, other than that, it's all about prep, it's all about planning, and the way that I've planned this out is that we're gonna fill this with argon, and then I'm gonna weld 1, 2, 3, 4, then the V-band, and then I'll turn it, and then while it's filling up with argon still, it's gonna be filling up with argon. I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, do all the joints, turn it, 1, 2, 3, 4, turn it. So basically your goal is to spread the heat out throughout the part as best you can. That way you can have the best chance of having a cool weld, and hopefully if your planning's right, you can just rotate it all the way, weld everything. But you know, the more complex the shape is, the harder it is. So this is definitely the easiest part of the project as far as welding goes. So let's get to it. I'm gonna torch this thing, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Well guys, there it is, the first piece of the project, and it went surprisingly well. I really have not welded anything substantial in almost a full year, so it's been a minute, and pleasantly surprised that it went good and that most of the welds look good. Of course, there's a couple, you know, little hiccups here and there, but nothing too serious. And yeah, she's definitely not going to fall apart, that's for sure. So next is going to be this V-band, the other side, that V-band, and then after that, the behemoth of the back side of the project. And I don't know if my argon tank is going to last. I lost about a quarter tank, so not too bad. So let's keep on going. And just like that, we have two of our finished pieces. We have the down pipe, the mid pipe, the V-bands are complete. And then I've also done the V-band right here on the beginning of the back side, but there's still plenty of joints left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then more. So there's still plenty more to do, plenty more argon to spend, and I don't think that I'm gonna have enough argon to finish this today, but I'm gonna try and use this up. Tomorrow's Monday, so I can go buy some more argon tomorrow. But guys, let's keep on going. Well guys, here it is, all welded up, and believe it or not, I had enough argon to get this job done with my own tank, and I think that is like ridiculous. Watch this, watch how low it is. The gauge doesn't even move. So I literally finished this job in just the nick of time, and it is looking so good. Lots of welds that I'm proud of, lots of welds that could be better, but this was a whole lot of practice and I'm stoked at how it turned out. Let's go ahead and throw this on the car. I still need to mock up the mounting holes, and hopefully nothing warped too bad while I was welding it, and hopefully the fitment is good. So let's put it on the car, turn it on, and show you guys what you've been waiting for. So she is mounted and looking good. This material, super easy to drill through. This material over here, which is the same as this one, the hardest stuff I have ever drilled through in my life. I went through 2 drill bits, titanium bits, slow and steady, hard pressure, and it took forever. It was so difficult, so don't do it, learn from me. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to wipe this all down with acetone, clean it up all nice and pretty, and then turn on the car and let's see what it sounds like. So here is the fitment, guys, and I do have a little bit of bad news from the welding. I think it did warp a little bit. You can see kind of from this angle that they're off just a little bit, and you know, I fiddled with it for literally hours before I drilled those mounting points and tried to get it mounted up. And you know what, there's just nothing I can do about it now. And it does bother me, but it doesn't look awful. So, you know, I'm not in love with how they're sitting, but I am in love with the side profile. I do love that from over here. You can see the resonators, you can see the tips, the pipes that lead back. I think it's a really nice piece. Also, from the back of the car, if you're like behind me at a stoplight, you'll be able to see these pipes, which I think will be really cool. So overall, there are some positives to the fitment and how it looks, but there's also, the tips aren't level. So it is what it is. The car has character, that's for sure. And you know what, there's just nothing I can do about it at this point. If I try and fix it, I'm gonna be undoing hours and hours and hours of work and potentially doing more damage. So we're gonna leave it like that, and that's how the cookie crumbles, guys. And before we turn the car on and we show you what it sounds like, I just want to close out this project and say that, you know, this was 10 out of 10, one of the hardest projects I've ever done on a car, ever, hands down. I mean, I basically restored this entire car myself by hand, and this was absolutely the hardest thing ever. And the thing is, I learned a lot, and I think that me doing this project was more than me just trying to make the perfect exhaust, but it was really about pushing myself and trying to do something outside of what I typically know. And I want to do projects like this in the future. I want to do projects like this on the new 2023 Nissan Z when I get it in. I want to make my own exhaust. I think it'd be a cool, fun project to do. So that for me, this is as much of a learning experience and not so much of a like, oh, I'm going to make the best exhaust in the world, because I mean, I knew I was going to have mistakes along the way. And so in 2020, during the lockdown, I taught myself to weld by making little radiator tubes. And so going from something like a little radiator tube to full exhaust was really the point of this project. And so I hope you guys can appreciate that. And even if the tips aren't perfectly level or whatever, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the project and learning how to fab at least a little bit. And so I won't be doing projects like this all the time because it's really expensive, and obviously I'm like so exhausted. I've spent a cumulative over 40 hours on just this project, and that's more than I think I've spent on just about any other project for the car. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you've seen a couple of my videos, feel free to subscribe. And if you've watched the first one, the first fab video, and the second one, thanks. And let's turn the car on. It's late tonight, it's already dark out, so we're not gonna just totally rev it to the moon, but yeah, we'll see what it sounds like.